How's it going, guys? Today we'll be taking a look at Uurig's full metal cage for your Sony A7 Mark III or A7R Mark III when compared to the more pronounced SmallRig camera cage. How does this budget accessory hold up in terms of the features provided as well as the build quality? Should you get the Uurig camera cage or stick with the SmallRig cages? Hi, my name is Ken and welcome back to the channel where we talk about filmmaking, photography, iPad Pro related content and tech. If any of this piques your interest, consider subscribing to the channel as you may learn a thing or two from these videos. So today we'll be taking a look at a camera cage from Uurig, a company that produces high quality budget friendly camera accessories. If you came from my last video about rigging up a Sony A7 Mark III using different Uurig accessories, this is the first episode of breaking down each accessory in terms of the features they offer, how does this compare to other camera cages, how to configure this on your camera rig, and finally my review and impression on it. And this is the R063 full metal cage for the Sony A7 and A7R Mark III. It is said to be an upgraded version from the C-A73 metal cage rig. So to quickly summarize the differences between these two cages is that the design of the C-A73 has a pretty squared looking design. It has only one cold mount, no built-in Nato rails, no hidden wrench sitting at the bottom of the cage like the R063. However, it does have one extra 3/8 screw thread on the right side of the cage. Uurig has then released an upgraded version of the metal cage, the R063, for the Sony A7 and A7R Mark III. Well, a quick comparison with the SmallRig cages, a company that solely produces high-quality camera rigging accessories. They have two versions of the 2087, both in which are very similar to the C-A73 and the R063. They have a lighter weight camera cage, the 2918. And finally even a pro version camera cage, the CC-S2645. The key summary to note is that all of the SmallRig cages comes with two Arri locating pins, which can be very beneficial. Just in case if you are keen to know about all the cages, I'll leave some links in the description box below for you to check them out yourself. Now, before we take a look at all the features of the Uurig R063 cage, let's start with what comes inside the box. The R063 is packed in a cardboard type box, and there are only three things inside the box. First, an Allen key for tightening and loosening screws, a sticker from Ulanzi, and of course the R063 camera cage itself. No instruction manual in the box this time. So let's move on to taking a closer look at all the features on this camera cage. Starting from the build quality of this cage, it is made out of metal aluminum entirely and it is built really solid. And the finishing on this cage is surprisingly smooth to touch. And here are the dimensions of this cage: 142mm in length, 67mm in width and 110mm in height, and it weighs around 210 grams. The design of the cage is really modern and streamlined as compared to the previous version that literally looks like a square cage. From the top, you can see that the frame of the cage is not in the way of any buttons, well, not directly at least. You can still access the buttons and dials, but sometimes you might bump into the camera cage, and we will talk about that a little bit later in the video. So along the top of the cage, there is a built-in Nato rail, which is a rail interface system for mounting accessory and equipments. There is only one Arri locating pin on the top of the cage, which functions to prevent twisting of an equipment like the handle of your cage. Also, there are a ton of 1/4" screw thread on the top of the cage. Moving to the right side of the cage, there is a cold shoe mount right here, as well as two handy wrist strap groove here on the right side of the cage and another at the bottom of the cage. Running down the right side, the grip of the cage is made to fit perfectly in your palm, and towards the bottom, a much beefier base that sort of gives you a better grip of your camera. And at the bottom of your cage, the compartment where you change out the batteries is not obstructed. You can still swap out batteries with the cage installed. There is a wrench hidden at the bottom to quickly tighten and loosen the screws, and the coolest part is that it is magnetic and can be easily kept away when not in use. The bottom plate is ARCA Swiss compatible, which means you don't need to mount a separate ARCA Swiss plate at the bottom of the cage to mount it to your tripod. And finally, onto the left hand side of the cage, there's another cold shoe mount, a couple of 1/4" screw thread, and a shoulder harness hole for you to place in your strap. There's also another built-in Nato rail right here, and the most important is the cutout of the HDMI and microphone port. The doors are easily accessible, and no worries right here using the ports with this cage. That basically sums up all the features there is to know about the R063 camera cage. Without making this video too long, here is how to set up your A7 Mark III with R063 camera cage. It would be advised to remove your camera lens from the body to easily place the camera inside the cage. Take note that before placing the camera in the cage, there is a small screw that we are supposed to take out. Align the hole of the camera's side buckle with the plastic and metal ring removed. You may check out a video right here on how to do it exactly. Tighten a small screw right here and align the bottom of the camera with the camera cage and fasten the bottom screw. Well, for ease of changing sake, you can opt out tightening the smaller screw on the right. It will still work. When I first installed it, the alignment under the battery feels a little bit off-centered, but after confirming it again with both the left and right side, it kind of feels okay. Now let's move on to the things that I like and dislike about the cage. The first thing that I like about the cage is of course the price. For about 156 ringgit, compared to the SmallRig cages that range about 300 to 400 and even 500 ringgit, the quality and the features provided by the cage when compared to the more expensive SmallRig cages, to me it's worth the money. The build quality on the cage is fairly solid. I absolutely love the big fear grip on the right side when holding the camera. The side of the cage is also small enough to fit in my Peak Design 6-litre everyday sling. I also like that you get not one, but two extra built-in Nato rail system that's required to be purchased if you're using a SmallRig cage, which in turn adds more cost to your setup. This actually opens up to a vast selection of Nato rail accessories when you intend to expand your camera rig. The additional cold shoe is also a plus point here on the cage. However, you can always add in the R070 expansion plate for that extra cold shoe mount. The built-in ARCA Swiss at the bottom of the cage also comes in clutch as compared to the SmallRig cages where you have to mount the ARCA Swiss plate at the bottom of the cage. You can easily switch between shooting on the tripod directly onto the gimbal if set up correctly. Of course, if you have the Peak Design capture clip, then you would have to install the Peak Design base plate in order to use it. And there are a 1/4 inch screw thread readily available at the bottom of the cage for you to do it. Now on to the things that I dislike about the Uurig R063 camera cage. Remember earlier when I mentioned that you would occasionally bump into the camera cage when accessing the C1, C2 and camera dial? Not to say that it is directly blocking the buttons, but now there is a ceiling that covers all the buttons and you would have to scoop under the cage to access it. Uurig advertises that you can easily attach this to a gimbal vertically to shoot portrait style videos. I do find it weird because the camera cage is positioned with the right side of the cage on the gimbal, and the right side are just 1/4 inch screw threads, which doesn't make any sense. Unless you are to mount an ARCA Swiss plate like the Peak Design ARCA Swiss plate, and yeah, you could mount it vertically as advertised, but I was expecting something else. For comparison's sake, here is an L bracket for the Sony A7III that actually comes with a vertical ARCA Swiss mount built in on the left side of the cage. If you're looking into shooting vertical videos, you can do it pretty easily. One last thing is that the lack of Arri locating pins on the R063 camera cage as compared to the SmallRig 2918 lightweight camera cage that comes with an additional Arri locating pin for you to rotate between using the R008 as a top handle or as a side handle like shown here in the video. However, the 2918 SmallRig cage doesn't come with an ARCA Swiss mount, so that is a big no for me. To wrap up this video, for the price of 156 ringgit on the Uurig R063 camera cage, to me it's worth the investment in case you are just starting out to rig up your camera cage. Just so you know, camera cage accessories are rather expensive. Each component sits around about 100 to 200 ringgit or even more, and to know that there are budget-friendly accessories that brings about the same quality and features or even more, allows creators like you and me to start exploring this side of filmmaking. I would highly recommend any of you starting out to rig up your camera for filmmaking to consider picking this up over the SmallRig camera cages to save up a couple of bucks. You can check out other people's videos about the SmallRig cages and their experiences and see whether it's a good fit for you. Try it out yourself and see if you belong in this group of handheld filmmaking stuff. And that is all I have for you guys in this video. Hope you all find this insightful. If you have any questions at all, feel free to drop me a comment down below. I'll be sure to get back to you guys as soon as possible. Like the video if you actually enjoyed it, and be sure to be subscribed to the channel as we will be taking a look at the next camera rig accessory, the R008 Universal Arri locating camera top handle next week. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, I will see you all very soon. Stay safe, peace out, and bye bye. That's a wrap.